Hey everyone, we've got another update to the Poison Pathfinder build. This build has demolished everything in the in-game, and it's actually very tanky now as well. We're crushing 8 mod, and I guess 6 mod tier 15 maps with Abyss, Deli, and Irradiated Tablets. We're blasting Pinnacle bosses, and even cleared max rank Simulacrum before making all of the big defensive upgrades that we're gonna showcase here today. We'll also give a rundown on how to craft some of the more important pieces of gear in the build, and touch on some really commonly asked questions. Before we jump into it, help us out with that YouTube busy work. Like, subscribe, and hype this video if you're on mobile. These all tell YouTube to show our content to more people, which helps us keep doing this. Alright, let's just go ahead and start with the frequently asked questions right away. And starting with the most commonly asked question, Plaguefinger. Is it good? What's the deal with it? Should you use it? So what Plaguefinger does, and really all that Plaguefinger does for this build, is it makes it so that elemental damage contributes to poison magnitude. By default, poison is based off of the physical and chaos damage of the hit, and that's it. Elemental damage doesn't come into play. So if you run Plaguefinger gloves, you can put a bunch of flat elemental damage onto your rings, and onto your bow, and your quiver, and get damage contribution to your poisons from that. That's effectively it. The issue with Plaguefinger is that Path of Building, for whatever reason, just has a bug where it says that Plaguefinger is worth a massive increase to damage. I could show that off here. It says it's worth a 60% more damage increase compared to these really good physical damage gloves equipped here. The only issue is this character has literally no elemental damage at all, so Plaguefinger would actually be a DPS loss, and it is in-game. This has caused some confusion. It's a bug with Path of Building. It'll get fixed. Alright, next question. Rizlatha's Coil. What's the deal with it? Is it any good in conjunction with Plaguefinger? As for combining with Plaguefinger, basically no. Rizlatha's Coil only affects your physical damage, and Plaguefinger explicitly encourages you to use elemental damage. So they basically have negative synergy with each other. You shouldn't use them together at all. As for what you want in a Rizlatha's Coil, it's pretty simple. There are 2 rules on it that really matter a lot. One is more maximum physical damage, you want that number to be as high as possible, and less minimum physical damage, you want that to be as low as possible. What that does is make this belt shift your damage values up by a large amount, and that's pretty much it. Your physical damage will just hit harder on average. More damage is always good. Alright, next question. Weapon swapping. What's the deal with that? How do I do it? It's actually pretty simple. And the reason that we use weapon swapping in the way that we do is Rigwald's Ferocity. Rigwald's Ferocity gives you 30% more damage if you are using it in weapon set 2, but it also reduces the attack speed of the skill that it's put into. So we don't really care about the attack speed penalty, we just put this into Poison Burst Arrow, and now it's 30% more damage with Poison Burst Arrow, but we have to use weapon set 2 in order for us to get that bonus. So that's exactly what we do. We take all 3 of our poison skills, those would be Poison Burst Arrow, Toxic Growth, and Gas Arrow, and we just disable weapon set 1 in them. Then we also lock our bow and our quiver to both be used with weapon set 1 and weapon set 2, and now we're good to go. But we can do more with weapon set 1. We can use Stormcaller Arrow for weapon set 1, locking that to only be used with weapon set 1, not weapon set 2, and then we can set a bunch of our weapon set 1 passives to be things like Chance to Shock, Increased Magnitude of Shock, Increased Duration of Shock, and now we can get 100% shocks on bosses that last for 30 seconds at a time, effectively giving us double boss damage all the time. And that's pretty much it for weapon swapping. You're cruising around with weapon set 2 as your primary attacks for all of your poison stuff. You really only use weapon set 1 to apply shocks, and so most of your poison skills, most of your default stuff is set up for weapon set 2. The way that they're shown on your character's passive tree is that the weapon set 2 skills are in green, and the weapon set 1 skills are in red. It's kind of unfortunate for people who are colorblind. Hopefully GGG will work on that at some point. Alright, now let's go ahead and talk about what we've done to upgrade the build, and we'll start with skills. First off, we got like level 20 skills on Poison Burst Arrow and Toxic Growth. These are just both ones that dropped. Not mandatory or anything, but you know, it's like 5% more damage each time you level up a skill, so pretty big for our 2 primary skills to have more damage. Still using a 19 Gas Arrow, using pretty much a 19 on everything else, except for the Bloodhound's Mark and the Herald of Blood, which I think are 16 and 18 respectively. I think maybe all the Spirit Gems are 18. They don't really need to go up, to be real. And we are using 6 sockets on Herald of Blood, again, because Perfect Jeweler's Orb dropped, and we're just using a Magnified Area 2 in that final socket. If you have enough int you can do that. Otherwise, overreach also works. 40% area of effect increase is good too. Right, but we're just doing bleed, poison 3, bursting plague, admixture, and magnified area. Just trying to get as much like bleed and poison spreading out of Herald of Blood, which combines nicely with poison burst arrow, which has that Rigwald's ferocity, fork, bursting arrow, yeah, bursting plague. You know, all of the stuff that we've been using before. We haven't switched over to doing anything else really fancy with any of our support gem sockets at all. One thing that we've done that's a little bit different from the way that we had structured it for the guides in the past is using an exorable critical on Stormcaller Arrow, and that is specifically because of Harmonic Generator. The 40% increased magnitude of shock you inflict with critical hits does mean you can actually still get back up to 100% shock value on bosses reasonably easily. Like, you just throw a couple of Stormcaller Arrows into a boss. One of them is pretty much guaranteed to crit if you hit them like 2 or 3 times, and then that's 100% more damage. Probably you won't need it on, I mean, basically any boss. Most of them are going to die in like 5 seconds, but it's a thing you can do if you want. As for Bloodhound's Mark, I guess we are using Uruk's Smelting on this, and the main reason we're using Bloodhound's Mark, we kind of talked about this in the last video, right? But it's just like to get Mark for Death on enemies. You can make Bloodhound's Mark last forever if you shoot the enemy with 1 Poison Burst arrow and apply bleed to them. They'll then have blood loss, which means that the mark never expires. And then that gives you like Leech of both life and mana. And then Uruk's Smelting just makes it so that when you break their armor, they take more damage, which means you do more direct damage with your Toxic Growth, which is a big chunk of your damage. This build, you do a big chunk of direct damage with Toxic Growth and a ton of poison damage with Toxic Growth. So, you know, better to get more damage than to not get more damage, right? Now, talking about our passive tree for the character, this is all pretty much just gone, like, according to plan. The one real big deviation that we've done here is we've thrown a Time Lost Sapphire in here instead of a From Nothing Jewel or Against the Darkness or whatever it was over here. That would give, like, damages extra chaos. That would be awesome to get one of those, but last I checked, they were kind of expensive. Maybe they're not anymore, but ultimately it just isn't really something, like, we felt like we needed. Like, damage has been good, right? So that would maybe be a thing to just pick up more damage out of the notables over here, but because there is no ability to use a From Nothing Jewel over here to get, like, dizzying hits and stupefy very easily, or material solidification super easily, you, like, having to actually path to those. It's not the end of the world, but it is, like, it would be the end of 6 points, I guess, to take stupefy and dizzying hits, so it feels a little too expensive for where we're at. So, having just leveled up to 96, I kind of just had an orphan point that I put here into evasion and energy shield. You could put it somewhere else, though. Vile wounds would probably be the move. For the next 2 points, you get like a lot of damage out of that, so that'd probably be the play. Otherwise, we're still using all the weapon swapping stuff. Spectral Ward and Subterfuge Mask give you a lot of energy shield and evasion, respectively, for stacking a lot of the other. And then, you know, we're just taking all the crit stuff as before, as intended. It helps a lot with stats as well, getting like 10% or 10 strength here and 10 int there and 10 int here and 10 strength or 10 dex there. Like, you get a lot of stat budget out of bonuses that also give a bunch of crit, which helps a lot with damage scaling. Ultimately, having played around with it a bit and like looked at it, it just didn't really feel like it was actually worth pathing all the way down here to get fast acting toxins, and that's because there's a lot of garbage filler nodes in the middle here. And spending like 11 or 12 points to come down here and take this just isn't, it's not efficient enough. Like, you're better off just anointing it, which it's not cheap. It does cost 1 isolation, which is pretty expensive, but that's it. You make yourself a nice amulet and then you're good to go. And that's actually a good transition to talking about gear. So we have some really nice rings here and a really nice amulet, and we'll talk about how to craft those. And then we just have some other basic gear, like a tiara with a ton of energy shield and crit and resistances and stuff. That's good, but like, really just going and getting like very high energy shield on a helmet will add a massive amount of damage reduction, like defenses. You're able to evade all types of attacks in PoE 2 as of patch 0.3, rather than just like direct enemy attacks. You're able to avoid like a lot of AoE skills and stuff, so that really is a much better stat. So having like a lot of that helps a lot. Then for the body armor, we are still using like Spirit as one of the prefixes, and then just as much evasion and ES as possible. We kind of made the swap over to not going for as much life and just going for a ton more evasion, and that has really helped, and it's worked really well with Ghost Dance. Having, you know, like 15,000 evasion or something has certainly made that like a lot better. The biggest, like most expensive piece of gear in the whole set is the boots. These boots had like, these are just ones that, like, these are just a purchase from somebody, ultimately. Just a bunch of resistances and evasion and energy shield and move speed, and then, you know, we're using that to get our chaos res close enough to cap for it to be like fine. So the quiver and the bow, I don't think we've made any changes to, but whatever. Like the quiver was just one that like we bought and used Omen of Light to like scour off a bad prefix and then like rerolled to be like a pretty great quiver. It'd be nice if it had crit chance as the other suffix instead of life when an enemy killed, but you know, it's fine. The bow is one that we crafted using the method from last update video, and you know, it was very simple to follow along with that. Ultimately, the goal would just be to like do this again, but hopefully get like a better suffix mod than just flat dexterity. Okay, so here is how to craft a +3 amulet with that increased global defenses modifier, like you see here. So what you want to do is start with an amulet. It can be on any base that you like, plus stats, plus strength or dex or int or all attributes are good bases, but any of these can be good. It kind of depends on the rest of your gear needs. So let's just start with plus int, whatever. And what you want is a magic amulet that has that +3 level of projectile skills. You can do the same thing for plus level of melee or minion or spell skills if you're doing something for a different build. The other modifier on the amulet doesn't matter. It can be literally anything. We'll just aug some garbage on there. So you want to start by using a greater essence of one of the 3 or I guess 4 resistances. Let's do insulation just because we already have it selected and maybe we need fire res. This will add fire res, and now it's rare. And now what we want to do is use an Omen of Sinistral Crystallization along with a perfect essence of enhancement. The Omen will make it so that when we use that essence, it will remove a prefix only. And we only have the one prefix, the one that was on there before that we don't care about. We're going to remove it and replace it with 20 to 30% increased global defenses. And now there we go. Now our next move is to use an Omen of Catalyzing Exaltation and add a suffix. So we can use Omens of Catalyzing Exaltation, although I think we can't here in the Rake Rafter. That's okay. And what we would want to do is basically just try to use Catalyst to get a stat that we want. If you want Cold Res, you could use Tools Catalysts. That would work. If you wanted an attribute, you could use Adaptive Catalysts. So you just roll that up to 20, turn on the Catalyzing Exaltation, and then use a rank 2 or rank 3 Exalted Orb, along with an Omen of Dextral Exaltation to guarantee that you only get a suffix. And so that's exactly what we're going to do here. Boom. We added Intelligence. Cool. This will remove all of the attribute catalyzation that's occurred here, and that's okay. Now what we're going to do is use a Preserved Collarbone, or you can use an Ancient Collarbone if you want to go expensive, and desecrate the item. We'll get a guaranteed desecrated prefix. And then we can do the same trick as before with the homogenizing catalyzation and use defenses, use like Carapace catalysts, and use that same catalyzing exaltation omen, use a second one, and just try to exalt on either like, hopefully either like evasion or energy shield. You know, this is something that might take a couple of tries to do, essentially. And then we use an Omen of Abyssal Echoes, which I think I might have eaten all of those. Yep, normally they'd be right here. But we do that, Omen of Abyssal Echoes, and then we reveal and try to go for energy shield, preferably percent energy shield, and this might take a couple of attempts. And that's exactly what happened here. I think I made like 3 or 4 of these before I got this one that has global defenses, increased max energy shield, increased evasion rating, +3 projectile skills, fire res, and then unfortunately damage taken recouped as mana instead of a nice attributes modifier, but like, you know, pretty good. 5 out of 6 ain't bad. Then you can throw divines at this if you want to try and get that global defenses closer to 30. Pretty much that's it for the amulet. All right, now let's talk about how to craft rings, and rings are a similar but somewhat easier process, but we're going to use a lot of the same techniques for rings as well. So we'll start with a ring of your choice. If you're wanting to really fix resistances, you could start with like Topaz Ring and roll Lightning Essence onto them, and that'll give you a bunch of lightning res. Then catalyze it with Esh, and that'll give you a bunch of lightning resistance. But for the purposes of what we're doing, we're finishing with Reaver's Catalysts anyway to get more damage, so you might as well just use Prismatic Rings and just kind of cover all your bases. It really just boils down to whatever sort of resistances you need, that's what you're going to want to go after. So in this case, what we're looking for is actually a magic ring that has 2 good attributes, so added flat physical damage, and then some other sort of useful suffix, you know, either like all attributes or a specific resistance or mana leech, just, you know, whatever it is that you need for your build. Find that, and then what you're going to do is go the same direction. Use an essence to add an attribute to it, And then what we're going to do is guarantee that we can get a hybrid chaos and elemental resistance onto our suffix by using Dextral Necromancy and Abyssal Omen, Abyssal Echoes, and then also use the Sovereign, the Ulaman Omen, this one right here, Omen of the Sovereign. And then we hit it with one of these Preserved Collarbones, and we can unveil. We'll get 2 shots at it, but lightning and chaos resistance will show up basically all of the time. I don't think it's 100% guaranteed, but it is a very high chance for it to occur when you use the Omen of the Sovereign, because there are only 3 possible modifiers that can have the Ulaman tag on rings for the suffixes, and one of those is that combination of lightning and chaos res. So it's a like 1 in 3 shot, and then if you use an Omen of Abyssal Echoes, it'll then be 2 in 3, and that's pretty good odds. Even though the Raycrafter is not playing very nicely, it is actually pretty good odds. You get lightning and chaos res. I think I got that on literally every single ring that I've crafted in doing this process, and having now sold like a bunch of them and also made a bunch more than have sold. This has worked out really well. This is kind of honestly a market that we've cornered a little bit over the last few days that we're kind of blowing up, and that's okay. Now what we're going to do is just use the same technique as before, Omen of Catalyzing Exaltation, to try and throw life onto the prefixes, and so we just use a bunch of Flesh Catalysts and Omen of Catalyzing Exaltation, and then rank 2 Exalted Orbs, and just hope that we can get it, and yeah, this ring wound up being better than any of the ones that we actually crafted. You know, ultimately that's fine. Like, this is one ring, really nice, T1 rarity, T1 fizz damage, T2 life, pretty good stats other than that, and then this is the other one, T1 fizz damage, T3 life, T4 lightning damage, cold lightning and chaos, works pretty well. And so that's pretty much the build. The only things that are like really left to upgrade here would be like an Olros Resolve Life Flask, which I don't know what those cost, but let's take a look now together. Only 25 divines, nice and affordable. That would be a huge upgrade for this build for sure. Other than that, everything feels like pretty great. This build is really like slamming its way through everything in the game, so, you know, not to say that you couldn't pour several mirrors into it, but you really don't need to. It's pretty good, and yeah, it's taking everything down that the game has to offer. Okay, it's question time as usual, and this time we're going in-game. What is your favorite boss in the PoE 2 campaign? There are a lot of good options available. Viper Napawatsi was definitely our favorite before Act 4 and the interludes got added, but now, I don't know, there's some pretty cool options in Act 4. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and finally thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us and help us make more PoE content, consider becoming a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.